One day while I was browsing Twitter, I came across a very peculiar tweet. This person needed someone who understood Spider-Man to explain a sushi roll that they had found on Uber Eats. Well, considering that I talk about comic books for a living, and as someone who eats a lot of sushi, clearly I am the perfect man for the job. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the Spider-Man 3 roll. And as a big fan of the character, nothing about it really stood out to me as particular Spider-Man-y. However, I'm not one to turn down a challenge, and I made it my personal mission to get to the bottom of this. What is the origin of the Spider-Man 3 roll? What happened to rolls 1 and 2? Why is it even Spider-Man themed at all? I honestly thought that this was just going to be a quick Google search, but these questions sent me on a deep spiral down the rabbit hole, and I was not prepared for the emotional roller coaster that I was about to embark on. Now, catchy names at sushi restaurants are nothing too unusual. Some places like to name rolls after the city that they're in or as a reference to pop culture, so a Spider-Man roll seems right at home. But it's the 3 part that was really bothering me. So I did a Google search for the roll, and I was surprised to see that multiple restaurants across the United States actually have it on their menu. What I also found is that much like the one listed on Twitter, many places have just the Spider-Man 3 roll and not Spider-Man 1 and 2. However, I also found plenty of listings with Spider-Man 3 and just a plain Spider-Man. But for some reason, Spider-Man 2 is practically never listed. Any results that I did find of it, however, had it listed among the other 2 rolls. Well, at least they got the confusing numbering system of comic books down, so there's that. It also surprised me that the ingredients of a lot of these rolls are very similar to each other, which is interesting because all of the restaurants that I found are scattered throughout the country, and almost none of them are chains. Clearly, all of these guys are getting the idea from somewhere, but where could it be coming from? Now, sadly, I live in Dallas, Texas, and from combing Google, I wasn't able to find any restaurants near me with a Spider-Man roll of any number on the menu. The closest that I could find was Ninja Sushi all the way up in Oklahoma, and as much as I wanted answers, I don't think a 3-hour car ride was going to be worth it for maybe an answer. Thankfully though, I can conduct my interviews right here in the comfort of my own home by directly calling these restaurants and asking about the dish's origins. Of course, the first place that I should call is the restaurant from the tweet that started it all. So by searching for the exact phrasing of the tweet, I discovered that this listing was for Kota Sushi in Belmar, New Jersey. However, when calling them up, they did not want to divulge any information.
Hi there, I had a quick question about your menu. Yeah, so I noticed that you have something called the Spider-Man 3 roll. Do you know why it's called that? Hello?
Without answering my question, I was put on hold, and the phone call was still ongoing, so they didn't just hang up on me. But after waiting in silence for a good while and occasionally me asking hello, they did eventually hang up on me. Now, I don't think that I was being rude at all, so maybe this was just a mistake. Nothing a second phone call couldn't fix.
Hi there, I just called about the Spider-Man 3 roll. We seem to have been disconnected. Hello?
But again, I was put on hold and hung up on for a second time.
That's 2 in a row. This is literally the first place I called. I just wanted to ask about the name. They don't want me to know. They don't want me to know.
The second restaurant on my list was Kenji Sushi in California, and this had another weird experience.
Hello? Hello? Okay, let's just try again.
Sorry, the mailbox is full and there is not enough space to leave a message. To send a message to another...
Okay, so this isn't just me trying to troll for an April Fool's Day video. Literally, the second place I called, when they picked up, there was nothing. I tried again, no reply, no outbox message, and they're full. What the hell?
With all of this strange behavior, I only became more and more obsessed with getting to the bottom of this mystery. Thankfully, though, my other calls yielded more results.
Why is this name?
Yeah.
I I don't know, they just called it the Spider-Man.
Okay.
Most of the people I talked to laughed when I asked about why the Spider-Man role had its name, but some mentioned that it was most likely because it was an evolution of the regular spider roll. This extremely popular roll can be found in practically every single sushi restaurant in the US, and it has soft-shell crab and is frequently paired with ingredients such as cucumber and avocado. A server at Sushi Omakase in California chimed in with more detail as to why it could have gotten this name.
Do I know why it's called that?
Yeah, that's a weird name.
Yeah, we have all our names very unique. Well, soft shell crab is inside, and we refer to that as a spider.
Okay.
I was also curious as to why Spider-Man 2 rolls weren't on menus, but no luck there either.
Okay, is there a Spider-Man 2?
No, that's only Spider Roll and Spider-Man 3.
Only Spider and Spider-Man 3, okay.
After hours of phone calls, I kept getting these same answers, or lack thereof, over and over again. But sadly, I was no closer to closing this case. But then I had an idea. I noticed that most of the restaurants that I had found with Spider-Man rolls were small, local shops, but I actually had 2 results that were from chains. All this time, I had been talking to servers and cashiers, but maybe I should be aiming a little bit higher. So if these 2 chain restaurants have multiple locations, then there's a good chance they also have some sort of corporate office that I could call. After all, it's pretty likely that people working at a corporate office were around since the chain's inception, or at the very least, when the roll was likely added to the menu. I first decided to call a chain called Yamachen, but all of my hopes and dreams of getting to the end of this mystery went up in smoke.
We don't have like a corporate office. We're our main location in General Booth in Virginia Beach. That's where like my boss and my manager work.
Okay. So any questions about like marketing and stuff would be sent there? Because I called that first location. I was having a hard time like actually figuring out who to talk to.
You would leave a message for Jenna if she's not there.
For Jenna.
Jenna.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, goodbye.
But at least I had a name, and that has to be worth something, right?
Sushi on General Booth. How can I help you?
Hi there. I was hoping to talk to Jenna.
She's not here right now. Can I leave a message?
Yeah, this is a really weird question, but I'm actually working on a story about the Spider-Man 3 role that you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just trying to find like the origin of that, so I don't know who best to talk to.
Oh. What?
Yeah, weird question, right?
I'm not sure. I can ask her for you when she comes in.
That would be
She would be the only person that would know.
Sure. So I actually got Jenna's name from another location. Who is she in the company? Hello? They don't want me to know. I was starting to think that all of this was just going to be a massive waste of time. But since there was only one more restaurant to call, I figured, what do I have to lose? This was a chain called the Drunken Fish, and funnily enough, this place actually got on my radar during my research when I was combing the web for any mention of a Spider-Man roll that didn't strictly come from a restaurant menu. One of the oldest posts that I could find was on a blog called The Sushi Machine, which was run by a chef at the Drunken Fish. Now, although this blog was posted in 2012, I think my dumb brain only remembered the part of it where it mentioned that it was an 8-piece roll. So in my notes, I had the date of the blog listed as 2008, which would have made it the oldest mention of a Spider-Man roll that I could find online. And yeah, I did admittedly mess up on this, but look at the design on this Blogspot website. Could you blame me for thinking that this was older than 2012? With bated breath, I dialed my Hail Mary, hoping that maybe this time I could reach some higher up. Okay, is there like any kind of central office or anybody I can talk to? This is gonna sound super weird, but I'm actually working on a story about the Spider-Man role. It kind of just popped up out of nowhere a few years ago. And like,
yeah, we have a corporate office, and that's where our owner works out of.
Awesome.
Do you want the number for them?
That would be amazing.
I couldn't believe it. My chances of getting to the bottom of this mystery had just skyrocketed.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
You too, goodbye. Okay, let's call the corporate office.
For general drunken fish or kimchi guys inquiries, press 1. Hospitality Group, this is Darla.
Hi there. This is the corporate office of Drunken Fish?
It is, yes.
Okay, perfect. I have a really, really weird question that I was hoping you guys could help me get to the bottom of.
Okay.
So I'm actually working on a story about the Spider-Man sushi roll. Yeah, I know, it's really weird, right?
It's okay.
Yeah, for some reason, it just kind of popped up like in the early 2000s and kind of spread across the country. And from what I've been able to find, you guys have the earliest online listing for that menu item.
Okay.
So I was wondering if there's any way I could find out like why it was called that. Like, I don't know if it was like off of like somebody else's menu, because like I said, like they kind of popped up all over America. So it could just be like a common thing, like a California roll or something. Or
Let me see if our marketing director is available. Hold on just 1 second.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Hi, this is Mihi speaking.
Hi there. You're the marketing director for Drunken Fish?
Yes, I am.
Hi there. My name is Drake.
How may I help you?
Yeah, my name is Drake McWhorter, and I've got like a really weird story that I'm working on. Can I just like?
Who are you with?
I am an independent publisher.
Okay.
So
What is your publication called?
it's called Trailer Drake LLC.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Trailer Drake.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm curious about a menu item you guys have at the Drunken Fish called the Spider-Man roll. So for some reason, this roll kind of just popped up across America over the past like 10, 15 years. And from looking online, it looks like your restaurant actually is the first that has the earliest search results on Google for it in 2008. So I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. It's a really weird rabbit hole that I've gone down, and I kind of can't stop researching it now.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out like if this is a creation that y'all made, or if this is like if it's just become kind of like a common menu item like General Tso's or California rolls.
Sure. Well, I think in general, spider rolls have the soft shell crab on the inside.
Right.
But the Spider-Man roll is unique to us.
Okay.
And it has the soft shell crab that's in it, along with kanikama crab, vegetables, sriracha sauce. So we've made it our own.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does seem like in like 90% of cases, it's just like a more elaborate spider roll.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
so to your knowledge, you guys were the ones that kind of pioneered that, or like you didn't take outside influence?
Not for that roll. The influence was from the spider roll itself.
Right, that makes sense.
Which is, I think, but the Spider-Man roll is completely unique to us.
Okay, totally makes sense. I just want to make sure, because like I said, you guys had the earliest result online, and if you guys are the creators of it, that would be really awesome, and I can hopefully not have to fly to Japan to try and hunt that down, because that would be ridiculous. All right, well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Bye-bye.
Hey, goodbye.
If what we heard was correct, then it looks like the Drunken Fish might have been the creator of the Spider-Man roll. However, while I do believe the marketing director and that they came up with this dish on their own, especially since their menu has other rolls named after superheroes like the Superman roll and the Wonder Woman roll, the ingredients in the Drunken Fish's version of the Spider-Man roll are just way too different from the majority of similarly named ones for me to think that they are the true source. You see, I should probably mention that while doing my research for this video, I made multiple spreadsheets and pie charts to catalog the ingredients that were used in Spider-Man rolls across the country so that I could find common ground between them all. Ingredients on the Drunken Fish's incarnation has things like shrimp, sprouts, and sesame seeds, which are pretty uncommon in comparison to the majority of Spider-Man rolls that I found, which makes me think that this is not where the trend started. I totally believe them when they say that they didn't have outside influence and that their roll was simply the result of wanting to take the traditional spider roll to the next level. But sadly, that means that even with all of this research and all of these phone calls, I was probably never going to find the answer. Plus, this was just a Spider-Man roll. I was no closer to figuring out why the hell there were so many Spider-Man 3 rolls across the country anyway. To make things worse, I had been making calls all afternoon and I hadn't eaten all day. After talking about sushi non-stop, could you blame me for craving it? That's when I had an idea. I was making all of these charts to find the most common ingredients in the Spider-Man rolls anyway, so why not try to have these custom made so that I could have a taste for myself? It sure beats driving all the way up to Oklahoma for it. After calling up a bunch of restaurants in the Dallas area, I stumbled across Sushi Axiom in Addison that was not only willing to make the rolls, but they also agreed to let me film inside. So I enlisted the help of my good buddy and fellow YouTuber Dreamcast Guy, and we decided to swing by for an early dinner. As for how these rolls were going to be made, I created 2 charts each for the Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 rolls respectively, with the most common ingredients in them. One chart was for ingredients on the inside, and the other was for the toppings. For the Spider-Man roll, it looks like the main ingredients are soft-shell crab, avocado, and cucumber inside, topped with eel sauce, spicy tuna, spicy mayo, and sriracha. Spider-Man 2 had a significantly smaller sample size, since this dish barely seemed to come up in my research. As a result, it's 50-50 on if the soft-shell crab should go inside or on top of the roll. So for the sake of making it different from the other two, we're going to go for cucumber and crab inside, topped with soft-shell crab and eel sauce. Finally, there's the mysterious Spider-Man 3 roll with soft-shell crab, avocado, and cucumber inside, topped with spicy mayo, eel, and more avocado for good measure. After all of this research and a bunch of boring phone calls, I was finally going to try the elusive Spider-Man rolls.
Alright, so we're gonna try the Spider-Man 1. I'm not really a big tuna guy. It's fine. Spider-Man 2, though, is interesting because they put the soft-shell crab on top. So, like, let's see. I like a lot more crunch. And finally, Spider-Man 3.
The legend itself.
That's good. It has the perfect balance of, like, warm and crunch. That's good. I have called every single restaurant on Google that showed up for Spider-Man 3 roll. That's Spider Spaceman, Spider-Man all one word, the actual Spider Dash Man. I have tried the Roman numeral 3. I have tried the regular number 3. And honestly, there aren't that many locations that do have a Spider-Man 3 roll. What I think is most likely the case is that someone made a Spider roll and beefed it up to make the Spider-Man roll. Maybe they made a couple other options with the Spider-Man 2 and the Spider-Man 3. I mean, there's a trilogy, it makes sense to kind of name it after that, and if you have multiple variations on the Spider roll, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3 makes sense. There are two likely scenarios as to why this happened. One, I do think it's pretty unlikely that Drunken Fish is the first company to make a Spider-Man roll, but if they are, maybe they did that and other restaurants decided to add it up with the Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, or maybe another restaurant came about it organically and made Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to just have 1 and 3. There are some restaurants that have all 3, so clearly the one that originated this trend would have made them. What I'm thinking probably happened is that a new restaurant, when trying to farm for recipes, it was kind of copying what other people were doing, and maybe they didn't like the Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, so they strictly took Spider-Man 3. And from there, I guess other companies that were trying to do the same thing were just copying that one Spider-Man 3 roll. And it kind of became this game of, like, culinary telephone. I am kind of bummed out, though, that I didn't find a definitive answer. So if any of you guys are better detectives than me, since I really am just using Google and calling around, please let me know down there in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter @TrailerDrake. But yeah, I figured this would be a fun excuse for an April Fool's Day content, since it's definitely not what I normally do on here. But if you like comic book content, maybe consider subscribing or watching some more. But hope you guys have an awesome April, or whenever you're watching this in the future. And hey, maybe I'll see you next time.